earlier.
Wi-Fi? There we go. There's the Wi-Fi. Well, welcome to 155. Welcome to 155. In case you're wondering, the U.S. is already losing to Portugal 1-0. So the game's already bad. You might as well just stay here at this point. So, yeah, there's just that one power switch. No. That's it. The whole thing. What's in my shirt? All right, so here we go. Welcome to week 3 of our Tension series. My name's Brandon Keller. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the youth director up here. And say hi. Hi. Nice. I like interaction. That's good. So, on your chairs, there's a little thing we call the bulletin. It says Tensions on the front. That's also got a connection card in it. We'd like you to put your name on that connection card. Like a name and an email would be fine, or a name and a phone number. Something besides your name would be great. We like to just kind of make sure we know who is here. We're not going to like show up at your house or anything crazy like that, but you never know. So if you can fill out that connection card, and then you can just follow along in your bulletin as I kind of go through the points tonight. And there's always some other great information on there. Who here has gone to camp so far? Raise your hand. I heard camp was pretty awesome. Was camp awesome? Awesome. Good. Glad to hear it. Yes. Sounds like camp was good. I'm glad you guys were enjoying that. So, what in the heck does tensions mean? Tensions. So tonight, what we're talking about, if you haven't been here before, or you know what, we weren't here last week, so it's probably been a couple weeks, so let me do a quick review for you. The first week we kicked this thing off like 3 weeks ago, and Chesney started things off by talking about hanging out. Who should we hang out with? And it was really about hanging out with either Christian friends or non-Christian friends. And kind of the answer was, you really got to do both. You got to find that fine line in between of hanging out with your Christian friends and your non-Christian friends. And then 2 weeks ago, Chris and Chloe talked about the difference between grace and truth, and how if you go too far to one side with like all grace, that's not good, and if you go too far to the truth side, that's not good. So it's kind of like the porridge. It's got to be just right, not too hot, not too cold, but just right. And so that's really what this tension is about, is finding that sweet spot right in the middle between two things that kind of seem like they're conflicts, but really you need to find a spot right in the middle. So tonight we're going to be talking about two things where you need to find that conflict spot in the middle. And those are two personality traits. And those are confidence and humility. Confidence and humility. And I think everybody knows what confidence is, and I think everybody knows what they say what humility is, but we're going to talk about it just to make sure everybody knows what it is. So, first up in your outline there, what's the definition of confidence? And this is the first fill in your outline there. Confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. So what are you confident in? What do you trust? As an example, this is a different example, but just now Danny came up here and told you guys to go all be seated, and I noticed everybody just went and sat down. Nobody like tested the chair first just to make sure it would hold their weight. You had complete confidence that if you sat down in that chair, it was going to support you, right? Nobody was like, I don't know, let me check this one. You had complete confidence that the chair was going to support you. So that's confidence that you need. So, usually when you think about confidence, though, you kind of think about someone, confidence a lot of times is taken too far. And so, usually it's about somebody believing something in themselves. And so, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, so sometimes maybe a great athlete has a lot of confidence because they've done things and they're super athletic and they've won things, or so they have a lot of confidence in their athleticism. Or maybe a great student, somebody that gets great grades, they're very confident in their ability to take tests or do well on assignments or just be the smartest guy in the room or whatever it is. Or maybe people have confidence in maybe the way they dress. They know that no matter what's going on, they know they look good, and that's enough to kind of help their confidence that they can kind of be where they're at. Or maybe you're one of those people that maybe have the confidence of, you're just kind of one of those people that have lots of friends, so you have confidence in the fact that you have lots of friends. And that's a good confidence, just to kind of know what's out there. So that's kind of what confidence is. So let's look at the second fill-in on your outline, and that is the definition of humility. And that is a modest or low view of one's own importance or humbleness. And so, when you're a teenager, or in high school or even middle school, that's really in life where you start to think you're figuring out who you are and who you're going to be. And there is so much pressure out there to be something or someone that's really where you're trying to figure out, who am I going to be, what am I going to be, and what happens a lot of times in middle school and high school is that you want people to see you a certain way. And so you start projecting or posturing this image out there of, I'm this person, I'm this guy, I'm this girl, this is what I believe in. And so you start to really kind of just project that out there because that's what you think the people want you to be. So that's kind of what you kind of project out there, whether it's cool or not cool or hip or not anti-hip or whatever it is. You're always out there trying to, project this image. And sometimes people go a little too far with this kind of project this image thing, and they get known as fake. Anybody know somebody that you kind of thought of as fake, right? So, back in my days, back in the old school days when I went to high school back in the 80s, that long ago, a lot of times those people got called posers because they were just kind of putting on this pose of they were able to do this, whatever it is, but really they couldn't do that at all. I mean, so I think I've probably been a poser and some stuff before. Everybody's posed a little bit. It just depends on how far you kind of take that thing. So you got to be careful about that. I found this historic sonnet that kind of summed up this whole thing about kind of this being fake and all that. And so it goes like this. It says, "You know it's kind of hard just to get along today. Our subject isn't cool, but he fakes it anyway. He may not have a clue, and he may not have style, but everything he lacks, well, he makes up in denial." This is a great band known as The Offspring, for those of you that don't know. They did a whole song known as Pretty Fly for a White Guy. And it's a whole song, really, and I think of Danny every time I hear it. It's a whole song about this guy just trying to fit in. He doesn't know what he wants to be, but he wants to be cool, and he's not sure how to do that, so he tries all sorts of stuff, getting bad tattoos, and just, driving a terrible car, and, all this stuff he tries to do, and just to be cool, and it just doesn't work out. And so, this is something that really happens in life where people just continue to try that stuff, and it just doesn't work. And everybody's posed just a little bit. Everybody's done a little bit of this kind of projecting this thing, because what that projecting is that humility of you have a low view of your own importance. You don't think the real you is quite good enough, so you put out this projection of something just a little bit better than what you are, a little bit different, maybe not even better, but different than what you are. And really that's that humility, the way we're talking about tonight, is that you just don't feel like the real you is quite good enough. And what's interesting is that even the people out there that I run into that are very anti-culture, very against the machine, and I don't care what anybody thinks, they're faking it a little bit too. They're putting out an image and posturing into this, I don't care what anybody thinks. They're trying really hard to convince everybody that they don't care what anybody thinks. It takes a lot of work to prove to everybody that you don't care what anybody thinks. So even those people are posturing a little bit and projecting out this this image because they don't have enough confidence in themselves and their own importance. So tonight we're going to talk about the battle between confidence and humility. And so we're going to start by looking at a verse in the Bible, and this is in your outline there. And it's James 4:6, and it says, God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Okay, cool. So we're talking about, humility versus confidence. So if I read this verse, I already know the answer. I guess I'm done with the test. I figured it out. I need to be humble because according to this, God opposes the proud or confident, and he shows favor on the humble. So if this is the end of the question, then I'm doing pretty good because I know for sure of all the things I want to do in my life, opposing God isn't one of those because he kind of created everything, and so he could probably wipe me out pretty fast if he wanted to. So I don't think going toe-to-toe with God sounds like a good idea. And it makes it pretty clear that he shows favor to the humble, so all I got to do is be humble, and God will show favor to me. So that's pretty well case closed, right? James 4:6 kind of wraps it all up. But unfortunately, if you ever read the Bible, you sometimes run into areas where different verses can contradict each other. And so we kind of have that same issue happening here. So if we go to the next verse in your outline, it's Ephesians 3:12. And it says, in him and through faith in him, just so we're clear that him is Jesus, in Jesus and through faith in Jesus, we may approach God with freedom and confidence. Well, now it says, if I'm confident, there's a bug attacking me up here. It's crazy. If you have confidence, you can approach God and just come straight to him. So a minute ago it told me to be humble and God's going to favor me, but now it's saying be confident, and I can just walk right up to God and stand boldly before the creator of the universe if I have confidence. So that just kind of shows you, I guess, that there's two extremes there. We got to find that sweet spot kind of right in the middle. So let's talk about confidence a little bit more, because that's where we were headed. People have confidence usually because of some sort of success. Either they're maybe a good athlete, they can play baseball or football or soccer really well, or maybe they're real strong, or maybe they have lots of friends and they're smart. I mean, you can have confidence for a lot of reasons. The problem is that if you get caught up in that confidence, it kind of becomes who you are. And what happens a lot of times is if you get too overconfident in what those things are, whether it's your athleticism or how smart you are or whatever it is, or how many friends you have, you can kind of get caught in a trap where you start talking only about yourself. Anybody ever ran into somebody that only talks about themselves? Yeah, those people are fun, right? A lot of times I refer to this person as the one-upper. I don't know if you guys have ever had a conversation with a one-upper, but this is kind of how the one-upper conversation goes. I walk up to the one-upper and I'm like, dude, let me tell you this story. For the last 6 months, I have been training my butt off and running as hard as I can and swimming and trying all sorts of things. And last week, I was able to run a 5-minute mile. That is awesome. I mean, that's like almost, Olympic ability. 5-minute mile is legit time, right? So, it only took me about 6 months training, but I was able to do it. And the one-upper, know what their response is? Yeah, I ran a 4-minute mile one time. I didn't have to train that hard, though. That's kind of the one-upper where they're so overconfident in what they can do that they always have to kind of one-up your story. No matter what your story is, their story is just a little bit better. Anybody ever dealt with one of those people? They are super fun also. You always feel like you never get to say the last thing because they're always coming back with why they did something just a little bit better. So the problem is you got to be real careful with those guys, because what happens is that if you put all of your stock in that ability, whatever that ability is, like you said, your athleticism or whatever, you get overconfident in that. You know what your friends say when you're not around? They say you're cocky or just arrogant. That's what they're saying when you're not there. Is that yeah, that guy's cool, but he's a little arrogant. I mean, he always just talks about himself. And so, also this person, a good way to kind of identify if maybe you're being this person or you know somebody that's this person is maybe this is the guy that is always taking the picture in the bathroom mirror with his shirt off and like flexing his abs as hard as he can and posting that junk on every social media you can find. That guy's probably trying a little too hard to kind of show everybody. Or maybe it's the girl that's taking the most sexy pose they possibly can, even though the toilet's in the background. I never understood that. But, taking some picture in the back, just trying to project this image of I'm so buff or I'm so pretty or whatever it is, because they become overconfident in those areas. And so you got to be careful, because what happens is that if you kind of go all in on the confidence, you'll never reach your full potential, because you'll never have any humility. And you're going to need humility to get through life. So let's talk about humility, since we're talking about that. So what's a worldly humility? A worldly humility, and that's the way we're going to talk about, is when you try to be humble, so humble that people will notice you. And you're going to notice that there's a weird thing about being both confident or humble, and they both kind of come out of this selfish desire for look at me. And that's because humans, we're very selfish, and if you say you're not selfish, you're lying. You're being selfish by saying that. We're just so selfish that even being humble becomes a selfish act. And so they both come from this pride, and they're always kind of, getting you to kind of cause things. So maybe some of these acts of humility is you tell everybody why you can't get ahead, why the world's out to get you. My boyfriend broke up with me, or this teacher hates me, my parents are always so mean to me, my phone always breaks, I have the oldest phone, or I can't get a car because I don't have a job, so I can't get a car, it's a vicious cycle. Whatever is going on, it's like you always have the worst outlook on things. But really what it comes down to is that pride that you're going, my life is so bad, look at me, because my life is so bad. And I know we've all done that, just accidentally told somebody something, you're like, oh, I kind of sound like a whiner a second ago. But, you got to be careful you don't get caught in that trap of always look at me, because you think your life is so terrible. And you want to make sure everybody knows that your life is terrible, because you don't have confidence or any of that, knowing that you're at least, past a little bit of that sadness. So either way, we kind of get stuck in the middle through that selfishness. If we're overconfident, it's because we're way too selfish. If we're super humble and looking for attention, it's because out of selfishness. And so both sides really have this kind of problem of, which side do I choose? And so should you be confident or should you be humble? And you have to decide which side you're going to be on. And so the myth tonight, and this is in your outline as well, is confidence and humility are at war. That's the myth. A myth is another way of saying it is not true, for those of you that don't quite understand that. You don't have to decide either one of these. You don't have to decide, I'm going to be totally humble all the time, or I'm going to be totally confident all the time. You can choose the middle ground. But there's one thing you need in order to choose that middle ground. Does anybody know what you need to choose the middle ground? Jesus. It is the answer. We are in church. Good job. This is why. Listen up. This is why you need this Jesus. Because Jesus was both. He could be. If you read through the Bible, there's all these great stories of when Jesus walked into the room, he was the most confident guy in the room, and he was the most humble guy in the room, all at the same time. And so there's so many stories of both sides of that. And so in order to have that balance of humility and confidence, you have to know what Jesus thinks about you. What is it that Jesus believes about you? And if you can think about that all the time and have confidence in what Jesus believes about you, then you know where you're at in the middle. And you can maintain that middle ground between confidence and humility. And it doesn't really matter what your friends say or your teachers say, or I'll even say sometimes what your parents say about you, or think about you. It's what Jesus says and thinks and says about you. That's what's really important. And so the great part about that is all you got to do is act like Jesus, and it kind of just keeps working on itself. You act like him, and he kind of goes, yep, you're doing good, act like me some more, act like me some more. And so it's not really what other people say about you, it's really what Jesus says. So the problem, if you don't use the Jesus on this, is that if you put all your stock in being an athlete or being anything like that, that's where you'll base your whole life on. And that's what you think you're going to become, because people say that's what you're going to become. Wow, you're an awesome baseball player. You should play baseball. You're going to be so great at baseball. That person walks away going, I am so awesome at baseball. Everything I do is going to revolve around baseball from now on, and I'm going to be fantastic at it. But unfortunately, one thing can happen, and then baseball doesn't matter anymore. One injury, one bad move, whatever happens. So girls, if everyone says you're pretty, and I'm sure people always tell you you're pretty, just looking around the room here, you may start to build your faith and your ideas around being pretty. And what can happen is that you can make bad decisions based on trying to maintain that level of being pretty. And pretty soon you start to go, well, I'm pretty, so I can do this. I'm pretty, so I can act like a jerk. Well, guess what, Regina George? That doesn't work out all the time. I mean, if you act like that, you could get hit by a bus. I mean, bad things happen if you put it all on being pretty. So you got to be careful. Guys, if maybe you are awesome at a sport, or maybe you're awesome at playing an instrument, and you build your entire identity around that, the problem with that is, eventually that's going to fade. Eventually there's going to be somebody better than you. Eventually you're not going to be the top of your game. And if that's what you build your whole life on is that belief that, I am a baseball player, or I am an expert piano player, or whatever it is, you're going to run out of time, and you're going to make bad decisions along the way, because that was your belief all along, is that you built everything around that. And if you need a story about an athlete that maybe started out with the right intentions and then went horribly wrong, read up on Lance Armstrong. Guy made great decisions for a long time, and then he got a little too full of himself of what a great cycler he was, and had to do all sorts of terrible things in order to maintain that. So you have to believe that what Jesus thinks about you is what matters the most. And let me tell you, you may not hear this all the time, so listen closely. He loves you. And you may not hear that people love you very often. Maybe your parents don't tell you very often. Maybe your friend doesn't tell you. But I'm telling you right now, Jesus loves you. And he wants the most for you. And he wants you to have that identity in him. And so, if you walk with Jesus, you'll be able to have that confidence between humility and that overconfidence, and knowing exactly where you are. And so all you have to do is continue your walk with Christ. And what does that mean? A lot of times that means you need to read your Bible more. Maybe you need to pray more. Because the only way to figure out what Jesus is like is to learn about him. The way you learn about him is to read and pray and let him talk to you. And so he will give you that confidence, because when you're rooted in Jesus, and I've seen this happen with a lot of students here in the youth ministry, maybe they came in and they were pretty meek and didn't talk to very many people and stuff. But once they figured out that they had a lot of Jesus going for them, and that Jesus was on their side, they started to walk around with a little more confidence. They started to do things that maybe were outside their comfort zone. They may have prayed up here on stage when 6 months ago they would have never done that because they didn't have the confidence to do it. But knowing that Jesus was working with them, they were able to accomplish those types of things. Or maybe Jesus will help you be a little more humble. If you're struggling with being too confident, maybe he'll help you be more humble by maybe one of the great things Jesus did was he worked with what was known as the untouchables, or the unclean. In the Bible, there's lots of stories of Jesus touching the untouchable and working with the unclean. And maybe there's somebody in school that everybody thinks of as the untouchable, that person that nobody wants to deal with, or they're kind of an annoyance, or whatever their issue is. Maybe Jesus is talking to you a little bit to have a little humility so you can make that one step closer to that person and maybe make an impact on their life. So tonight, your last fill in there, and on the screen it's going to kind of say fact here. Confidence and humility work in concert. You got to have both. You can't be overconfident. You can't be super humble, because either one is just based out of pride and selfishness. You got to find that middle ground in everything you do. And if you're wondering, how do I do that? It's the age-old question. There's wristbands and t-shirts. What would Jesus do? Right? You see that all the time? Because it's for real. That's how you find out the answer. So, on your connection card, there's some next steps I'd like you guys to consider tonight. The first one is, you're sitting here going, I don't know what the heck this guy's talking about, but I know I need to find this place in between confidence and humility and find that tension in between. And I'm going to need Jesus to do that. Maybe you need to ask Jesus to be the Lord of your life tonight, because you just realize that the way you've been doing it isn't working. Maybe that way's not working anymore, and you decide, you need Jesus part of your life. You can check that box, and we will pray for you, and your life will be changed for sure. The next one is, I will embrace the tension. This should be an easy fill-in. Everybody should be able to check this box. This just means you're going to work to make sure you find that sweet spot all the time in between confidence and humility. You're going to work and realize when you're being overconfident or over-humble, and make sure you find that sweet spot in the middle. And the last one is, next week we're doing something awesome in Big Church downstairs on Sunday morning, and that is baptism. And so if you'd like to sign up to get baptized, you can check that box, and somebody will call you this week and find out what service you want to come to. And Chris Woodson will dunk you right in the baptism pool. It will be fantastic. So if that's something you need to get marked off your list, because maybe you asked Jesus to be the Lord of your life, but you haven't done that next step of baptism yet, I want you to take that next step tonight and get baptized. So I'm going to go ahead and close out prayer real quick. You guys will bow your heads and close your eyes. God, thank you for tonight that we can just be here and just be amongst our friends, God. With everything else going on in life, it's so nice that we can just be here with our friends and just know that we can have complete confidence in our relationship with Jesus. And if we stick with that relationship with Jesus, things will be better for us, God. And that we'll be able to make better decisions, and we'll realize we're being overconfident or being super humble, God. And you'll correct us just a little bit at a time so we can stay on the right path of finding that tension in between the two areas. God, thank you for the students that are here tonight, God. And God, if there was a student here tonight that just asked Jesus to be the Lord of their life, God, we're just so thankful for that tonight, God. And we know you're changing hearts and everything here every week, God. We're just so thankful. God, let us have a great worship tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. Come up, worship the band.